Why is banking as a service so hot right now?
Yeah, that's completely true. Every company is striving to become a fintech company.
I think the demand for instant gratification is because we live in a digital world today.
Great. Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 7 of 11FS Spotlight. In this weekly show, we shine a spotlight on the best and the brightest in the tech and financial services industry to try to understand what gets them going, growing, and what they think the future of the industry will look like. Before we get into it, quick shameless plug, please don't forget to give us a follow on LinkedIn so you never miss an episode, and YouTube. And then another plug for 11FS. What you just saw was the trailer for our new documentary series all about banking as a service. So the whole series, there's going to be more in the series, are on its concept of decoding, so taking a topic that's super relevant to what we all do and breaking it down. So the first is banking as a service. We're super proud of what's in there. It's some great content. If you like the trailer, please subscribe to our channel, check out the full video. You can find it either on YouTube or by going to bit.ly/decoding, BAAS, to find out more. So on to the show. Joining me on today's Spotlight, I'm delighted to be joined not by one, but 2 guests from Nationwide. On the show today, we have Paul Riseborough, Mission Leader for Hassle-Free Money, and Rachel Sinclair, Mission Leader for Homes and Dreams. We are going to be talking about Nationwide's new approach to leading businesses, revolutionizing old ways of working, and how they're creating the most effective teams in the industry to get their best work done. Hello, Paul. Hello, Rachel. How are you two doing today?
Good, thank you. Thanks for inviting us.
Hey, Eric, how you doing?
Great to have you both. So we got a lot to talk about today. Really excited personally, and I'm sure our audience is as well, to hear about some of the changes happening over at Nationwide. Obviously, you two are a big part of that. But before we get into this, would love to hear a little bit more about both of you. So Rachel, why don't we start with you? Tell us about maybe the origin story, if we take a superhero reference. Who is Rachel Sinclair professionally? Where'd you start? How'd you develop? I already know how long you've been at Nationwide, but maybe you can tell our audience about your journey there as well.
Yeah, of course. So I don't mind declaring I've been in financial services for about 20 years now. I really enjoy working in the sector, and I guess over the years what I've found myself doing is really kind of picking up and pushing for opportunities that have helped me really experience the industry at a broad level across countries, and in roles that have kind of developed my breadth of leadership across change management, operations, channels, strategies. I guess I would say I'm someone who doesn't stand still. But then, I just shared with you before we started that I've been at Nationwide for 11 years. So I think that sounds like a bit of a joke. But I landed at Nationwide and I found myself, working for a mutual organisation, and Nationwide itself has such a strong sense of purpose, and we frame that, internally and externally around building nationwide, building society nationwide, and it really does. Working in a mutual gives you a sense of freedom and purpose to get some stuff done, and that's what really drives me in my career and the roles that I take and the role that I am in now, I guess. So that's me. I don't think I would give myself a status of a superhero at all, but I'm sure Paul's got one up his sleeve somewhere.
Definitely not. So yeah, Eric, I joined Nationwide just 6 months ago now. So I'm a newbie in every sense, particularly as I barely walked into the place yet because of the pandemic. And I joined from Metrobank, where I was for nearly 9 years as Chief Commercial Officer. And I think what drew me to Nationwide was just this incredible sense of purpose, this really interesting mutual model, not having shareholders, being able to take a long-term view of things. And I think I feel really happy about the decision I made when I'm there. The kind of people I meet in the organization are so incredibly focused on the members, as we call them, rather than customers, that it's just got a really lovely vibe. And there's a real link between where I've come and where I'm going, because both brands are very focused on service above all. So it's been a really interesting journey. And the mission roles, as we'll talk about, are really exciting developments at the society, and there's lots to look forward to.
Great. Yeah. So let's talk about that. I mean, that's a big topic for this discussion that I think a lot of people are interested to hear more about from the inside. I think we've all seen the announcement earlier this year, not the pitch, but the overview of like what's happening and why it's happening. But from both of your perspectives on the inside, and Rachel, I know particularly you were involved in also, bringing to life the concept, not just rolling it out. Talk to us about the structure of missions within Nationwide, and then each of your roles individually on Hassle-Free Money and Homes and Dreams. Rachel, maybe start with you.
Yeah, let me just frame the kind of the path that we've been on. So, as you say, I've been one of the original architects around the member missions. And I guess I'd step back. Over the last 3 or 4 years in Nationwide, we've been slowly evolving our structure and ways of working in key areas of the organisation. So back in 2016, 2017, and this is when Joe Garner, our current CEO, joined us. We dismantled what was quite a traditional divisional structure in the organisation, and we had about 16, 17 divisions with our own walls between those, and created what we call communities. And our communities still exist today. There's about 7 communities, and they are really all about building specialisms, building talent in the organisation. And at the same time as creating the communities, what we started to do, like many, was our journey into new ways of working across our technology teams, and also setting up our digital teams and extending that into innovation and venturing. And what the member missions are about is the next evolution, next chapter on that, because what we're trying to do is work in partnership with the specialisms, bring together technology teams, digital teams across a flow of the organisation. So what you won't hear us talk about is establishing business units. What you won't hear us talking about is matrix structures. But what we are trying to do is take, through the member missions, connect up the activity that needs to happen across the organisation to meet on specific member needs, aligning the organisation around specific goals and priorities. And really what we're trying to do in this next phase is unlock some of the agility in the organisation, facilitate our decisions a little bit quicker than we potentially do today, but also by empowering teams against key outcomes, really unlock that creativity, unlocking efficiencies across the organizations. So that's where we're at, and we mobilized at the beginning of the pandemic. So Paul was not with us at that time, but he was on the pitch, but just not with us. But we decided to set up the missions basically when we went into lockdown. So this has been a structure that we've been mobilizing all through being working at home. But it was important to do that because we needed to have a way where we could bring the organisation in together in a different way, and I'm sure we'll get into some things that we've been focused on over the last period. But if I talk about Homes and Dreams, and I love the way that internally we've captured this as Homes and Dreams. Homes and Dreams is really about the core existence of Nationwide as a building society, and we're really focused on 4 member needs in Homes and Dreams. So first of all, it's about helping our members and their families have a place to call home. So whether our members are renting or whether they're owning their own home, this is about having a place to call home, being able to stay in their home and feel safe and secure in their home, as well as being able to thrive in their home. So that's a specific need that we're centered on. We're also, secondly, focused on our landlords. So we have a really important brand called the Mortgage Business, and that is, very much focused on helping our landlords build their portfolios, manage their portfolios, but in a way that's really leading the industry in terms of what good looks like across the private rental sector in the UK. And then we get more into the dreams part of the mission, which is very much about helping our members to save and invest in their future. So helping to build a financial cushion that's very much about later life and the needs in later life, as well as building a system that is starting to help families support each other financially a lot better than they perhaps can do today. And the fourth and final need is very much centered around, helping our members to protect their home, protect their income, protect their families for those events, the unexpected events like a pandemic that can happen at any time. So that's what Homes and Dreams is really anchored around. Paul, do you want to introduce Hassle-Free Money?
Sure, yeah. So Hassle-Free Money really is about, creating simple, connected, everyday banking experiences as you'd expect. There's nothing, in one sense, particularly unusual about that. A number of players and brands have similar sort of expectations and goals. But I think what we're trying to do is, through the mission, this is about, in some senses, it's about complex coordination across the organisation to make sure that we can increase the pace at which we deliver things, collaborate more with our colleagues and members to get stuff done, and release more value more quickly, so that we're getting stuff into the hands of members that they have been part of helping us to design. And I think Hassle-Free Money's got kind of 4 territories that we're looking at. The obvious ones around joining and deepening your relationship with us, a big investment program and focus on getting stuff done, the everyday transactions that you want to get done in a seamless way. But then some really new, interesting areas around how we can help our members feel more in control of their everyday spending and financials. And there's a lot of thinking around how we can do that. And then finally, the next generation of money products and services is a big focus, as you'd expect. And I think there's never been a more complex background to that, really, because I think what we're going through at the moment, record levels of inequality, technology disruption is a constant, changing face of competitors. There's a lot for us to think about in those areas around how we bring together our thinking. I think for me, one of the interesting things about missions is, as a new guy, right, to Nationwide, Nationwide had some serious creds in this, in working in agile ways before. I mean, the digital squad teams, think about MBS Ventures working with a load of fantastic fintechs and partnering in a range of different ways. I think that the challenge of the missions and the opportunity of the missions is that we're using that vehicle to actually bring agility to all areas of the society, not just technology teams. So a mission, in my mission team, it's senior leaders from across the business, across the society. So we have our own CIO, our own chief product officer, all sitting, product owner, all sitting around that leadership table for the mission. And they sit there sometimes, and we might be chewing over a problem, and they'll sit there and think, well, actually, there's nobody else we need to consult to get this done.
Yeah.
And that's the point, right? No layers of governance, real accountable freedom to make a dent. And that's ultimately what people want when they come to work each day, right? They want to get some stuff done.
Yeah. I mean, it's really, we talk a lot in this industry, and I'm sure others, about customer centricity. And this is that, in my opinion, this is that played out to the extreme in a good way, like the most that you could possibly do it from an org structure standpoint, which, is hard to do, but it does, to your point, Paul. I think, not only does it line up better with the needs of the customer, but to your point, in terms of, the only constant is change. There are things you can't predict. And also it's only getting quicker. If you're lined up with the customer as their needs change, you'll be able to change much more quickly than you were if you were more product centered or business centered. I'm curious, Rachel, because I think it's, I don't know, things like this, right? Like big organizational changes, big things that people have to announce. It's always kind of after the fact that we get to talk about it. But I'm always curious, and I'm sure other people are too, sitting in other organizations that are maybe contemplating this. Is this something that was talked about for a long time and like really took a while to push through the system? I'm sure it wasn't like a knee-jerk thing, but was it like a meeting where this was presented and it was like, yes, that makes so much sense? Like, how did it happen? How did the decision get made?
I think what we were really close to what was happening in the digital squads and hubs, and really seeing some of the success that was coming out. So yeah, we've got a number of digital hubs that are there, the mortgage hub being one of them, which is our digital hub. And as an organization, we were seeing the success, but we were also seeing some of the barriers that were being felt by that team, because as Paul kind of referenced, what we hadn't done is line up the rest of the organization around what we were trying to do in that area. And so it was a conversation that really happened with our leadership team. As I said, I was kind of in the strategy seat and the architect at the time driving this, to say, look, there must be another way to do this. We're not unlocking the organization and unlocking the potential of the organization, but we've got this really great learning. So we went into probably about 6 months of really considering this really hard. And when we went into the design of it, there was factors that were really important to us as a building society, as Nationwide, which said, look, we can't just go and copy another organization. This has to be an operating model that feels right, feels unique for Nationwide. We've got a really strong value set in the organization that's framed around our pride values. It's something that's been in the organization for about 12, 13 years now. And in order to take the hearts and minds of people on this journey, it really needs to be anchored in that. And so building upon our community. So we're not dismantling the current organization and doing a massive pivot and, displacing people. This is about an organic movement, through partnerships, facilitating activity coming together. And therefore, it's an opportunity within that to really take our talent on the journey with us. So part of, obviously we've recruited externally in the market, but quite a few of the roles that have been placed, including myself and some other colleagues who now operate in this mission structure, have been brought into the roles through what we call a leadership pathways process, which is our internal kind of career development and talent pathways. So what we've tried to do as we've evolved the model is really try and kind of pull talent through the organization to be ready for these roles. And that pivot's very much about coming out of specialisms into really broader pathway roles. It's leading across the organization at a number of levels within the organization as well.
Yeah, because I guess, unless someone has done their whole career in Nationwide, and even if they have, this is going to be a new system. So you need to make sure people understand the why and also the what and how of how they play a part. And so there's 3 missions, right? So there's Hassle-Free Money, which you represent, Paul, Homes and Dreams for you, Rachel. And then can you give us the quick overview of the third, Moments That Matter?
Yeah, Moments That Matter, run by Janet Chapman, who can't be here today, unfortunately. Yeah, so Moments That Matter are those kind of key moments of truth for our members, where we need to tread really, really carefully and provide a kind of enhanced level of service, if you like. So bereavement is a great example. So ensuring that we create seamless experiences at the moments that we know are really positively correlated with you taking away an impression of the brand, of the society. So they are sensitive moments. They can be about personal data, third-party access, things like that. But it's ensuring that we really, really focus in on ensuring that we build really great, informed, humane processes around those key moments of truth. And that's a very, very detailed, intricate mission that is really thinking about how we get really close to the behavioural and psychological needs of our members at key times. Janet's doing some great stuff, which will roll out over the next, weeks, months, and years.
Amazing. All right. So for those of you watching live, please do drop your questions for Rachel and Paul in the comments, and we will serve them up. So we have our first one coming over to you. So from Babik, the question is this, meaning this structure and what we've been talking about, moving to more of a digital building society? So I assume that to broaden that question, it would be, how is this impacting the shift to digital for the organization overall?
Do you want me to take that on? I guess I wouldn't say, I get a bit frustrated when, they try. it's inevitable in the current age that we're in that we try and kind of pigeonhole brands of you're going digital, you're staying manual, you know. I think it's definitely true that this structure of the mission, this construct is about a more agile way of working, but it's not about saying that our proposition to our members is going to be solely about our digital channels. We're a big believer in being part of the communities that we serve. Our branches are absolutely central. They're the beating heart of Nationwide, and we know that our members really value them, perhaps now more than ever. But we are very determined with the missions to make sure that we increase the pulse, if you like, of the organisation, that we deliver more frequently, and often that delivery is digital. It's new features and benefits as you'd expect, but it's more of a way of working revolution than it is saying that our proposition is pivoting entirely to digital.
Great. So, in terms of everything that's happened this year, it certainly brought about complications, to put it mildly, from a business perspective. How has this structure helped, with managing that? We talked about being more agile. I'm sure that plays into it, but also, if this rolled out in early this year in Q1, and it was right at the time when everything kind of happened. So how has the structure helped with what you've had to deal with as a business in 2020?
If I start, I guess one of my big reflections through kind of the first lockdown for myself was I was really surprised about what we were able to achieve within the society, and actually I feel really disappointed that I felt really surprised at what we did. But through the first lockdown, I think there were things that we beforehand, in January, February, we were sat as a leadership team and said that, this isn't possible, or this is going to take us 9 months to achieve. And we would have procrastinated over some things actually. And what we saw through, the mission structure, and by setting really clear priorities, because at the beginning, all the way through the first months of the lockdown, we had to really focus on what are our priorities to protect the well-being of our colleagues and be there for our members at this point in time. And so, decisions had to be precise, priorities had to be called, and that really unlocked the organisation in terms of clarity of what needed to be done. We were first out to market with a digital proposition around payment holidays. Now, Paul kind of recognised, we've got a really strong structure and strong digital hubs, but actually it was Nationwide Building Society who were first in the market with a payment holiday digitally. I don't think many people would have guessed that actually if it came up in a pub quiz. We enabled all of our colleagues to work from home, and for us, we weren't digitally enabled as a 16,000 workforce, and at the minute we've got about 14,000 of our people working from home. We've introduced new ways of working, so our mortgage consultants, our financial planners are all at home doing work with video to member, and also we've converted processes so they can be done remotely. So there's just been this cadence of changes that we've been able to get through, I guess. Paul, would you have anything to add?
Yeah, it's how we've reacted to the pandemic, which I think the missions have helped. But in a way, there's nothing like a kind of crisis, is there, to kind of focus minds and convince yourself what you can do. I think one of the most interesting things as well has been how the missions themselves forming in that environment, let alone what they're doing is in relation to the pandemic. But they've kind of found their own way, and I suspect when we go back to normal, whenever that is, that we will adapt and incorporate a lot of the kind of tooling and platforms and rituals that we've developed, working remotely. We still, this won't be new news to loads of your listeners, but you can do a stand-up digitally. You can do a co-location day. You can collaborate using various tools. It's possible to do. Yeah. Do you miss the kind of water cooler conversation and moving the post-it notes around, which is not a problem for me, as you can see. I've still got my own post-it notes. you absolutely do miss that interaction. But actually, the missions have found their own way, and have found their own way of working, collaborating in this time. And I think that will actually stand us in really good stead in terms of where we can draw talent from, how we can work together when times go back to normal.
So what about more on the people side of remote working? Because from a process perspective, you can shift a meeting to Zoom or whatever it is. But particularly for you, Paul, being new, building your team, nurturing talent, getting that cohesion within the culture, how has that been working remotely?
Yeah, I mean, tough in one sense, but I think if any organization you could join, Nationwide is probably the best in terms of how friendly, welcoming, thoughtful. Maybe that sounds a bit, I would say that, wouldn't I? But everyone really is, absolutely super lovely, and therefore it's been very easy. I mean, getting to know and lead a new team when you've never actually seen them in real life is always a challenge. But people are people, right? If you spend time with them and get to know them, then it's possible to do it digitally. I have actually never actually seen Rachel in real life, though. There you go. So we are peers and we are colleagues, but I have actually never seen the real.
I've had that. There's no I can't think of a parallel experience. I've had that happen with a couple of people who have joined since we've been remote, and I've seen them in real life for the first time, and it's like it feels so different seeing somebody when you only know them over a screen. Okay, so we've talked a lot about the benefits, the upsides, the reason that this structure makes sense. But there's two sides to every coin, of course, and even if it's net positive, I'm sure there are some struggles or things that you've learned as you've gone through it. So what are some of the challenges that you see or lessons that you've learned from shifting to this structure so far?
I suppose from my perspective, it takes a bit of time, I think, to adjust to. I think this is about a flatter hierarchy, right? This is about empowering.
Delivered. What this is about is joining up on priorities and agreeing a set together, and that sometimes means that actually you need to compromise or give up on something, or actually say, look, I'm not going to lead on that. It's best that that's done over there. And so we've started to learn about this is about striking a strategic cultural change in the organization. It can never happen overnight. This is going to be a slow, incremental process, and we need to really bring people on the journey with us and allow them the freedom to go and test and learn new things in a really safe environment. Go and try new ways of working and fail at that, but celebrate that failure. This is not about being perfect and knowing exactly what the answers are. And that feels really different. But actually, the overwhelming feeling from the organization is both, look, the time was right to do this, and we're seeing really early seeds of the benefits and the advantages. And actually, this is really exciting for the organization. So that's really great feedback to be getting from the colleagues that we work with across the organization as well.
Yeah. And to what we were talking about briefly earlier, I think you mentioned it, Paul, as an organization, being more long-term oriented allows you to not just make moves like this, but also be more comfortable with maybe figuring out some of those challenges and difficulties in the short term. But I mean, I think that's such an important thing in all of the positive changes like this. Is the more long-term oriented you can be, the more advantage you have, because it means that you are moving towards where the value is for the customer in the long term. Just real quick, apologies for those watching live. I think we went down for a minute or two. So yeah, I hate to rub it in, but it was a great quick conversation. Sorry for those that missed the chunk of that. And obviously for those watching up on YouTube, you'll be able to see the whole thing. But why don't we keep going? So it looks like we have another question from the live audience from Lester. Person Lester, not place Lester, although maybe Lester is in Lester. How well has the mission structure translated down to shared service functions like your infrastructure services in terms of prioritization of response for change or service across the mission? So kind of how's it trickling down into the lower levels and the rest of the organization?
Sure. So we're on that journey, and we are starting to align all of those shared services and functions to the mission. And if you think about it, we were in one pattern, we're moving to another pattern, and that takes time. Backlogs need to be clear before mission backlogs start to take priority and all that kind of good stuff. But I actually think one of the most notable things is how that has motivated and enthused these teams, because they're fully bought in on the need to deliver for member needs, and actually they can see a total logic around taking an end-to-end view. I guess, I don't know, but I guess when you work in these functions, it's really kind of depressing if you get kind of micro things that are not addressing the whole member experience. So actually member need leads create that coherence that shared services are often looking for. In a sense, they're a better customer for you. So we're definitely seeing that kind of thinking and feeling towards the missions emerge as we kind of reorientate the organization. I don't know whether, Rachel, you'd have another view on that, being here longer.
Yeah, no, I absolutely resonates with me, but it's right the way through the organization. So in the depths of, infrastructure, shared service, into, just joining up the operations better than we were before. One of our key challenges through the past few months is to be, remain out there for first time buyers with some of our mortgage lending, and doing that at a time when you're really challenged on the operational capacity of the organization. So getting, fine tuning the ability for our mortgage consultants to stay out there through video to member, while at the same time being able to do valuations, but valuations that are either online or at desk because you can't go into people's homes, at the same time as doing more, manual referrals into an underwriting team, because we don't know what the future economics are going to look like, and we need to protect our members in that way. And at the same time trying to kind of complete these mortgages when you've got a really buoyant market. And so just bringing the teams into the fact that this is, we need to meet the member needs in this way. Here's the problem that we're facing. The energy that we have had to be able to manage that capacity, unlock some agility in the teams, has just been absolutely outstanding over the last few months. And that's about bringing whole teams together, end to end, to problem solve that. So yeah, it's been a roller coaster, and some really really good wins early on the pitch. So it's good.
Amazing. All right, so shifting gears a little bit, talking more about the future, 2021 and beyond. What's in the game plan? What's on the roadmap? What are you each looking forward to and excited about? Paul, I know you're still getting stuck in. Maybe let's start with you. What are you looking forward to when the calendar turns to January?
Well, this is always the bit where we have to be a bit cagey, right, about what we've got coming up without giving you some big exclusive, Eric. But we're definitely going to double down on servicing, on our digital servicing. There's a load of stuff that we want to achieve both in branch and digitally through our digital channels as well. We've got some pretty exciting thinking going on there around how we're going to take some of these journeys, pull them apart, and really design them around the member. And we've got some interesting thinking about how we're going to bring our branches into that conversation around making sure our members are digitally enabled as well. So I think that if you're working a branch, it's really exciting about the kind of areas you're going to get involved in now, working at Nationwide. And then we've got some great new greenfield ideas around new products and services, as I said, around what that might mean for banking, what that might mean for saving, what that might mean for short-term borrowing and payments and things like that. So I'm being suitably oblique, Eric, so I don't give you anything too juicy. But I guess we're kind of excited about what might come out of the collaboration approach that these missions are driving, because we think there's some really interesting areas where ultimately, for example, we have really strong colleague engagement, colleague panels and collectives where we're really kind of getting close to the issues that are, when someone walks into the branch and they're talking to you, what are they actually wanting? What's their real underlying need? It's not about product pushing. And I think that's something else that, the mutual model allows you to be slightly more thoughtful about. It's not all about, whacking out another savings account or another credit card. It's about what is that member need? How are we going to make them a member for the long term, so that they're with us, they place their savings with us, and we can help someone else buy a house. So the mission is uncovering a lot of these deeper needs, which we're hoping that we can capitalize on over the next 2 or 3 years using the new model.
And how do you know what the customer needs are? I mean, it sounds like an obvious question, right? But I find that oftentimes when we talk about being customer centric as an organization, it's not that we make assumptions, but we don't talk as much about the other side of like, how are you actually getting those insights? Like, I'm sure it's both quantitative and qualitative, but are you talking to people when they come into the branch? How do you actually know where to steer the ship from the customer needs perspective?
Yeah, well, I mean, this is where the missions, bring a lot to the table. So, we have, as Rachel was saying, communities with deep expertise in research, both qual and quantitative. They have representation in the missions, and they allow us to kind of draw on that deep research base. I mean, I would actually argue that sometimes working out the need is not that complicated. The organizational response can be, though, because it tends to be very path dependent on what's gone before. We're going to create a product to meet that need. We're going to create actually you've got to think about how you're going to orchestrate the organization to meet that need in much more finer levels of fidelity than traditionally has been the case. So we have a very, very deep research base that we can draw on, and it's a constant process. Great.
And how about you, Rachel? What are you looking forward to? What are you excited about for next year?
Yeah, so just building on what Paul was saying, we've been on a bit of a journey that, and others would say this as well, around reinventing the home journey, but that breaks down into two things for us. We absolutely, home is at the heart of what we do, and so we have a role to play to go kind of beyond being a traditional mortgage lender, and be out there through the right partnerships to find the right solutions, across from searching from a home right the way to the moment that you get your keys and you walk in that door and you're setting up your home in that first week, as well as kind of in the home purchase journey, really centering on how we can build certainty into that process. Is one of the most stressful things that we can go through in our lives. We all go through it. I'm going through it now. So how can we support the kind of the experience that we all go through at society level to really bring certainty into that process? And that will require us building new partnerships, and a shared objective around improving this as I say, at a society level. And then propositionally, we've got really two agendas across Homes and Dreams. The first one is around green. So obviously this is still a hot topic. It's dampened down slightly through the pandemic, but we really need to focus propositionally on how we help our members with the transition to carbon neutral over the next few years, and what does that look like? And also around later life. Our members, through the kind of member panels that we talked about, which is part of our insight group, are more and more needing more complex advice. And so we have a role to play to be out there to support our members, across their life stages, really think about what their later life is going to look like. So I'm really excited about that part of the agenda as well, because that's about fixing dreams as well. So yeah, key areas for us.
Amazing. I'm curious, the mission structure, is that something that you would say every company should be considering, or is it is really fit for purpose for Nationwide type of business, type of people, et cetera? Like, how do you think about that? Is it something you would recommend everybody be looking into?
So I would definitely start with a point of the principle around organizing around a need, a customer need in our terminology, a member need, absolutely makes sense, because what you're doing through the whole structure of your focus is making sure what you do and how you do it is really driving value to somebody's daily life. And the purpose and focus and sharpness of focus that brings makes sense. I wouldn't then take the kind of operating model that we have structured and kind of go, you can pick it up and place it into the organization, because there's definitely a uniqueness of our purpose and our strong sense of purpose that helps us unite around things that is just organic in the organization, as well as kind of earlier on I talked about the value set in the organization, set in pride, which kind of there's a lot of us that have the same value set and beliefs that sit in this organization. It's a very friendly organization, and so it feels quite different, but it means that we can therefore do other things. And I guess the third point in why the model works for us, it goes back to the kind of beginning, which is we are a mutual organization. We don't have shareholders, and therefore, as we kind of get into this operating model, we do focus on the longer term, and therefore have an opportunity to perhaps create more optionality in what we're doing and make different decisions. So yeah, that's probably what I would guide other organizations to think about.
Yeah, I think I'd agree with that. I mean, I think Rachel said it perfectly. I think the thing I would add, though, is just to move away from command and control, right? Because people show up because they want to do a great job. They want to have agency over things. And I think what the missions is, the concept of the missions is doing is giving people that agency. And I think more organizations, candidly, could benefit from that. It's always tempting in times of stress to centralize and limit and control from the top. But I think if you let the organization breathe, people that are closer to the work know the right answers and closer to the members and the customers. And I think as a principle, the missions are starting to show that. And I think more organizations could learn from that.
Yeah, it is interesting, actually, even in just the language of it and the wording of it. It lends itself much more naturally to someone feeling like they're part of something that's really meaningful, right? It's like hassle-free money, not product management, or however you figure it out. But I think that setting that type of thing as the North Star, I'm sure, supports how people feel like what they do matters within the organization as well. All right. So unfortunately, we are out of time, coming to the end of the show. Paul and Rachel, thank you so much for joining us today. Last question for you is, where can people find out more about you and everything that you're up to? What's the best way to either get in touch or follow what you're doing? Paul, start with you.
Yeah, I'm in all the usual places, Twitter, LinkedIn, whatever. Drop me a line.
Watching all the New England Patriots games too, right?
Yeah, indeed.
And Rachel?
Well, so this is my first one of these, and I'm not active on Twitter or online. So you can actually find out through Paul and ask him what I'm up to.
Fair enough. Well, we appreciate you coming on board. That's the big scoop, Paul, is you got Rachel on the show.
Yeah.
All right. That's all we have for you this week, but make sure not to miss our other live show, Newsroom, which goes live on Tuesdays at 3:30 UK time, 10:30 Eastern time over in the States. In Newsroom, we take a deep dive into the biggest news story of the week every single week. And please make sure you give us a follow on LinkedIn and subscribe to YouTube so you never miss an episode. And lastly, definitely check out our new series, Decoded: Banking as a Service, on YouTube. Thank you so much for tuning in, everyone. Apologies for the quick downtime for those of you watching live, but you can catch the segment that you missed up on our YouTube channel. And have a great week. We'll see you next time. Goodbye.